I started doing performances by just writing down sort of ideas. I didn't even think of them as scripts initially. It's interesting to say that, in the 1960s, I was also sort of writing poetry, but I found that very aversive. So the poetry, I got rid of the poetry, which I just thought was ridiculous. And so I started writing down these ideas in a very condensed way, with the thought that these images would sort of leave me. And instead of me, because it was this feeling that, why did I think of that? Why would you want to do something like that? So I thought that by writing them down very clearly, I'd get rid of them. The significant critic of the day, Donald Brooke, reviewed these statements as, we didn't have the term conceptual art, he referred to them as post-object. As soon as he did the review, I kind of realised that he provided me with a sort of permission and that I could then go ahead and perform these things. And that's when I really started doing public performances. Leg Spiral emerged out of that sort of matrix of ideas. It was always going to be a gunpowder wick around my arm, and suddenly in 1973 I found myself performing the piece as a gunpowder wick around my leg. And I'm sort of aware of that displacement. A gunpowder wick around my right arm was just too close to the bone if you consider that my left arm is missing. And it seems like a very small development, but that displacement has major implications in terms of my understanding in psychology. So in 1973 I did that work. I arranged for a gunpowder wick. I had no idea of what would happen. I wrapped the gunpowder wick around my leg, someone set light to it. There was this drastic event. I suppose why I did Leg Spiral was because lying behind Leg Spiral for me was all this feeling of apprehension and anxiety, of fascination. I'd conceived this idea, I could sense its strength as an event, but I personally didn't really know why I was doing this. But I did know why I wanted to do it as art. What I was interested in was the objectivity of formalist, minimalist procedures, and the claims of the minimalists, in a way, to exclude subjectivity for the sake of order, because I was very aware of the fact that someone like Robert Morris's huge black boxes, or even Don Judd, that what people experienced was the presence and the authority of those works. So the idea that subjectivity had been expelled was actually a sort of myth. In many ways, subjectivity had been amplified, because this is the way minimalist works actually communicate. So I thought about that very hard. So in a way, I was specifically attacking those notions of objectivity. Reducing the performance after the event to a series of photographic stills is a way of sort of reinscribing a sort of minimalist order. And so the aestheticism of the work as a photograph is something that ameliorates the shock of the impact and provides a sort of distance, a space in which the viewer can think. It's also the space in which I can begin to clarify my own confusions too, and reimpose a kind of order. It's interesting to remember at that time, the Australian art was very timid, the idea that art could be behaviour, performance in extremity, or conceptual art, which analysed art as art. These were notions that really did require alternative structures in order to be explored. Even now, 40 years on, this work remains provocative and disturbing.